and votes for the bill and then slashes the appropriation warrant. Or Senator Cornyn, who is a cipher, who stands, so far as I can see, for nothing. Get on them, stay on them. I don't trust them, okay? Just stay on their backs. Harry Reid, wanted to put off that vote because he knows he was going to lose it, but he's also hoping he can peel off a couple Republicans, in the next few days. And believe me, every kind of pressure is being brought to bear on senators. So you let them know that if they support this, you will never vote for them. You will do everything you can to defeat them. We understand that the only way that we have political power is by making our elected representatives terrified of us. They have to be profoundly afraid of us. And the American people are as strong or as weak as they choose to be. Yep. You decide to be strong, you are strong. And if you get on the phone and you call, and you get that nasty 23-year-old who says, yeah, still write down a survey that has 1,000 votes. When you make a phone call, they write down 1,000 votes. You send an email, they write down 500. That's what I say. Get on the phone. Call Washington. Call their offices. Now, I want to make an introductory caveat here, and that is that I'm going to speak for a long time, and you may experience this as excruciatingly painful, maybe even fatal for some people. The sight of people dropping dead from boredom will not stop me. I come free from Washington, that's the price of my coming. There's no potential death from boredom. But it's a complicated issue. That's what I wanted to say. And so even if I talk at length, I can only give you really what is a superficial overview, but I'm going to try to give you as much in the way of hard facts about the scale and scope of this issue as I possibly can in the time we've got. Now, since I'm going to talk at length, I've got to start out with a little anecdote that should give any speaker pause who's going to talk at length, but it's fairly appropriate. Now, a man comes to give a talk at a local church, and during the reception after the talk, one of the congregants comes up to him and says, "You talk too long." Now, that wasn't particularly pleasant to hear, but all right. And so the speaker's on his way over to get a donut, get a cup of coffee, and the same curmudgeon comes back again and says to him, "You were boring, too." And now he's feeling fairly nonplussed, but, he kind of tries to shrug it off, and he goes up, and the guy then returns for the third time and says, "And I disagree with everything that you said." Now, the preacher has overheard at least part of this conversation, and he doesn't want the speaker to feel too bad, so he comes up and he says, "Look, I heard what this man said to you. I want you to know his opinions count for nothing. He's been in this congregation for years. The man is an imbecile. He's a complete moron. And beyond that, many of us think that he is probably demented." Why do we think that? Because all he ever does is repeat what everyone else says. All right. Now, it will concentrate our minds, I think, if I make my biggest point first, and that is contemporary mass immigration is the most important issue facing America. And I have the temerity to say that to Tea Party groups that are dealing with other issues of very great moment. But I happen to believe that the ramifications of this are the most serious. What we decide to do about this is the most important political choice we will make in our lifetime. And in making it, I urge you not to think about what might have been good for your great-grandparents, or your grandparents, or maybe your parents. I urge you to think about what's good for your grandchildren. Think about what's good for the future of America. To address this issue thoughtfully, we have to free ourselves from the delusion that immigration is a fetish to be worshipped, that it's an icon, that it's an absolute good. No public policy is a fetish, and no public policy is an absolute good except in context. Like all public policies, the way we understand whether it's good or not is whether it serves the national interest at a given moment. whether it's good for the American people in the broadest sense. Now, what's at stake in this debate on immigration? Well, I would say almost everything we care about. Our most basic values, our most basic allegiances, and our most basic interests. National security, sovereignty, preserving the powers that the Constitution grants to we, the people, and opposing its theft by the financial and political elite. Now, the founders of this nation were very much concerned about that. And if you read the Federalist Papers, particularly some of the pieces written by Jefferson and John Jay and Madison, you will see them writing incessantly about usurpation. They understood the political class would try to grab the power for itself. That's why you Tea Party folks are out there, because you recognize that. Our faith in and reliance on the rule of law is at stake. We have wholesale violation of the rule of law. No society can endure that. That's right. And remain whole. Sustaining the balance that we've struck in this country, and it's a very difficult balance to achieve, but we've done it, between the rich variety of our many identities, religious identities, ethnic identities, our roots that we came from, when our ancestors came over here. All of those things conveyed in the term e pluribus unum, okay? Our unity as a people is threatened by this. Preventing the emergence of a dual culture, dual language society. That is a formula for permanent division and social strife. Whether we're talking about Canada, whether we're talking about Lebanon, whether we're talking about the Balkans, anywhere in the world where you have two languages and you have essentially two cultures, that's a formula for social disaster. Protecting the dignity of American labor, that's at stake here. And maintaining the social safety net that declares that we're a civilized people. Most economists believe that continued low-skill immigration at the levels that we are sustaining is going to create a situation where we've got millions and millions of people who will never make enough in earnings to pay the taxes required to pay for the social welfare programs on which they will be dependent for decades. There's no question, for example, that Social Security will be bankrupt, probably within 15 or 20 years if this goes on. And finally, if we get this right, it will help us approach our relations with the third world in a more intelligent, sensible way. I think maybe what's most at stake in all of this is our faith in ourselves as Americans to make our own future. Right now, the people who decided immigration policy have chosen a future for us. We did not select that future. We have had no part in that decision. They've made that behind closed doors. The issue challenges the very democratic principle that public policy is decided by a majority of the citizens. And as I said, we've been shut out of this. Now, there are determinists. The determinists believe all these great forces are at work, and we can't control them. And we can't control immigration. They sound clever, but they're dead wrong. This dysfunctional system is not an unavoidable concomitant of globalization. It's not about some unseen historical law or force, and it didn't evolve by accident. Blind chance couldn't have produced anything this bad. Okay? If you had 100 monkeys and typewriters, they would have done better. Okay? This policy is a very rational scheme for promoting the economic and political interests of the people who've created it. And who are those people? Democrats. I'll name the culprits. America's corporate service sector, an agribusiness lobby, and the members of the United States Congress they own lock, stock, and barrel. Several American administrations. You can't blame this on Obama. It was probably worse under Bush. Okay? Mexico's government. The Hispanic lobby, I'm not talking about the Hispanic people, the Hispanic lobby, a small number of extreme leftist and extreme Mexican nationalist organizations, totally financed, paid for by the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, by billionaire left-wing foundations have already kind of abandoned their belief in America and are multinational, international. They don't care about America.